Ons gesels vanoggend met Brendan Murray van die Owl Rescue Center om uit te vind wat presies hulle rehabilitasieprosesse behels en ook om uit te vind tot watter mate die publiek 'n bydrae kan lewer. So Brendan, good morning and thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us again.
Now, Brendan, please just tell us more about the Owl Rescue Center. What should we know and how exactly was it established?
We established about just over 12 years ago now, mostly because there was a dire need for somebody to go out and rescue owls. Owls are probably one of the main animals that come into rehab centers, just because of their nocturnal activities, and against persecution against owls. So a lot of owls come in. So we thought, well, let's start a rehab center. And the first year we started, we did maybe 100 owls, and now we're doing over 2,000 rescues a year.
And why exactly are you based in Harties?
We're just past Harties, about 10 k's past Harties, at the back of the Magaliesberg mountain range. If anybody knows where the Skeerpoort vulture colony is, yeah, that's we're on the back of that back of their range.
And Brendan, just take us through the different stages of or phases of your rescue missions, as well as the rehabilitation process.
Well, we're a little bit different to other rehab centers. We focus a lot on driving out, flying out, doing the rescues. A lot, like as we said last week, a lot of our patients are not injured birds. A lot of them are orphaned. Many people rescue baby birds that they see them on the ground. And then those birds, so we're in a fortunate position that probably about 90% of our patients are not injured. So the rehab process is actually quite enjoyable. So it's a nice process. Yeah.
So what other animals do you rescue and other animals that's part of this rehab process besides owls, for instance?
Besides owls. Yeah, well, there's everything. We do everything. We do the only thing we don't do is snakes. So we do zebras, we do baboons, monkeys, crocodiles, you name it, we've done it. Yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of the other rehab centers ask us to do the rescues on their behalf. We enjoy the traveling, we enjoy the rescue side of it. So every month we do a more varied species of rescues. Yeah.
Yeah, doing a wonderful job. What are some of the biggest challenges owls face in general?
In Africa, persecution is obviously the biggest challenges. Funny enough, that in the last year, most of our patients, the injured patients, come in are barbed wire fences. Yeah. So we always stress barbed wire fences. If you don't need the fence, take it down. Obviously, a lot of people do need barbed wire fences, but if there's any way that you can take a barbed wire fence down, it'll decrease the mortality rate significantly. Yeah.
Mm. And we've seen Lassie on our screen, so just tell us a bit more about Lassie.
Lassie was an otter that we rehabbed 2 years ago. He'd been kept. He came from another rehab center. He'd been in captivity for almost 5 years, and otters in the wild only live to about 10, 12 years old. And they asked us if we could maybe take on the rehabilitation, see if it was an option for release. And when we got him, and I think it was in September 2019. Yeah, he quite a special little guy. He couldn't swim, he couldn't hunt for himself, and yeah, we spent 6 months with him in the river, in the Crocodile River, teaching him to be an otter. Very intelligent little guy, and yeah, after 6 months, he was on his own, and we haven't seen him for the last few months, but yeah, I think he's having a good life.
Now, Brendan, I mean, we've referred to some of the biggest challenges that owls face in general. But I mean, with that in mind, the things that you've told us about Lassie now, what are some of the biggest challenges that the other animals are facing, if you could point out a few?
Besides owls, yeah, we deal a lot with raptors, the birds of prey. And if you take over the last 20 years, probably about the average, they've decreased by about 62%, your raptors across the board. So if you've got a decrease of raptors of 62%, it tells you that there is something wrong with the ecosystem. And, it's all man-made stuff. 99% of it's man-made stuff. Like I was saying, the barbed wire fences, urbanization, rat poison, pesticides, insecticides, those kind of things, lack of, cutting trees down. 62% in 20 years is a huge number, and something has to be done to reverse it. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot of our raptor species. Are going to lose in the next 20 years. Yeah.
And how can the public contribute?
Contribute? Yes, to us you can contribute. That's for sure. If anybody wants to help us, help them. They can obviously go on our Facebook site. All our social medias tell us how we how we need funding and that to do what we need to do. But contributing not only to rehab centers, but I think just to be more just more aware of the plight of these raptors. If you don't need to use poisons and insecticides and barbed wire fences, just please stay away from them. Yeah.
And I mean, Brendan, do you think that, more can be done in order to spread the necessary awareness? And if so, what else can be done?
Also, I think if you start at the schools, I don't, we do a lot of educational talks at the schools, but I think they should put there should be a subject that they should focus on, nature conservation in schools. Start with the kids, start them with when they're little, and get them to love nature. And I don't see that in the schools. They focus on too much on the academic side of it, and not on the environmental side of it. And when we do educational talks with kids, you'll get to a school with 200, 300 kids, and they don't even know what an owl is. Yeah, so I think something's missing there. So yeah, definitely if teachers are watching, maybe add in a couple of hours a year of education on wildlife conservation. I think that'll be a good start.
And then when we get to your personal experience, I would like you to tell us a bit, because I mean, I can only assume that it's got to be hard to do the work that you do. So maybe the hardest thing that you sometimes have to face, and then also the thing that you enjoy the most about your job and these rescue and rehabilitation missions.
Yeah, the hardest thing is obviously the euthanizing of animals. When an animal comes in and it's unfixable. If, for instance, if an owl comes in and its wing is, let's say, disintegrated and there's nothing, you cannot repair it, that animal needs to be euthanized. And a lot of the times, if it's a young animal, then you feel, he hasn't even had a life yet and he has to be euthanized. But as I said, fortunately, 90% of our patients are orphaned owls. So we don't have to deal with it that much, but that is probably the biggest issue. But yeah, the good side of it is the rehabbing and the releasing of it. Watching these animals go free. That's why we do it, so that we can free these little guys. Yeah.
How do you deal with all those emotions? I mean, because it's got to be hard.
No, it's not hard anymore. Just the euthanasia of the birds. That's still tough. I mean, you get some special birds in here, and a lot of the times you'll get something quite significant, and yeah, that's a bit tough. But then that you've got another 100 patients waiting for you. So as long as you've got a good success rate, and we have got quite a good success rate on releasing rehab healthy animals. So it makes it all worth the while then.
So people can just go and look for you on social media platforms and search for Owl Rescue Center, right?
Yeah, so they'll find us quite easy. There's a lot of literature written on us, yeah, that they can.
Is there anything else that you would like to point out?
Support your local rehab centers. I don't know. Yeah, we're always trying to get funding to do what we need to do. We always want to grow. So yeah, if anybody's in a position to donate towards the center, yeah, that'll always be appreciated. Yeah. The more we get, the more we can do. Yeah.
And Brendan, just lastly, I mean, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, if you take a look at what we've discussed on Groot Ontbyt a couple of days earlier, I think it was last week or something. Misconceptions, yep. That's the word that I'm looking for. I think, people usually think that they are able to visit this facility or the Owl Rescue Center, but they can't. Why is that?
Well, there's a few reasons. First, we're a permitted rehab center with nature conservation, so we're not a zoo or we're not that kind of facility. Also, the sanctuary, when we got this sanctuary, we're on a 12,000 hectare conservancy, and when we got it, we thought it's not going to be open to the public. It's going to be a place just for animals, so that these are all wild animals that we work with. And once you rehab and release them, there's minimal human contact. All we do is feed them. That's it. And they don't see humans. There's no interaction with the animals whatsoever, even from us and our staff. And it's they don't want to be bugged. They're not, they're not tame animals. So so we're not closed to the public. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. We show what we do on social media, so people can see the animals living in their natural environment. And I think in our little conservancy, there's more owls living in this conservancy than any other piece of land in the world. Yeah. So it's a really, really nice habitat for them. And that's how we like to keep it that way.
Mm-hmm. Brendan, thank you so much for telling us about this and for joining us this morning, and keep up with the good work that you are doing.
Pleasure. Thanks. Take all the best.
Ja, dit was dan Brendan Murray van die Owl Rescue Center, en daarmee dan ook vanoggend se program.